Hello, everybody. What's up, what's up, what's up? Hey, hey. Back here with my homeboy. What's up, Kim? How are you? Today I wanted to discuss the outer gods and their influence on the world around us, and take a little deeper dive into what we think that they are, what they think, that they represent, knowing what we know, and kind of the way that we tackle things here on this channel. I think it'll lead to kind of an interesting episode, and I hope you guys engage and share with me your thoughts and question mine and let me know what you think and all this type of stuff. I'd be really curious to know. So let's just start off super quick with what we know about the outer gods. So, and the named outer gods, not necessarily ones that we think could be outer gods, but confirmed outer gods. We have the Formless Mother, the Sealed God of Scarlet Rot, God of the Twin Bird, and then the Frenzied Flame. And then ones that aren't necessarily named as outer gods, so we don't really know what they are, but they seem to have a pretty strong influence on the world around us. Obviously, the Greater Will, the Full and the Dark Moon, and the Blood Star. There's also the Fell God, and then whatever god Classy Boy is kind of waiting for. So, I guess we should probably start with what we know to be a god. I find it interesting that these really vague, elusive things are called gods, and so is America. It kind of personifies them a little bit. Like, you think that if America is a god, then would, the Formless Mother be a humanoid type of character? Good. How you doing? Thanks for hopping on. Let's see here. Kim asks, so very cool. I'm not aware of your position on this stuff. Are you more Lovecraftian? Sorry, I can't read that. In your interpretation of outer gods. So, yeah, Kim, if you're new to my channel, it's going to be really different for you. So I base everything off of human psychology. So if you're new to the channel, check out my first lore video, The Great Works Part 1, and then also my last video I talked about the different stages of the animus, and maybe I should just touch on that super quick to get people up to speed. So on my channel, hey, I'm Jake, by the way, I've never really been a lore hunter before. Oh, no worries. You'll catch up. I could tell you really quick. It's no big deal. I think it'd be valuable for anybody anyway. So, not really I'm not really big on lore hunting. I love reading about it and like listening to other people's content, but I never really cared to do my own research into it until Elden Ring. Don't really know why, but something kind of sparked in me. I was just doing a bunch of research and nothing was really sticking, and then I ran across this really famous psychologist, Carl Jung, and his theory of the human psyche seemed to relate to the game incredibly well. So basically, he believes that the human psyche is broken up into these parts: the ego, the persona, the shadow, the anima, the animus, and then there's other things as well. But basically, I believe that these characters are certain aspects of the human psyche as presented by Carl Jung. And yesterday, I stumbled across a article about Carl Jung and the different stages of. So let me just stop there, and I'm going to explain basically why there's certain things, even with the map, that make you believe that it's a story of human development, and basically like a path, the path of individuation, or the path of spiritual enlightenment, or whatever it's called. So if you look at the map, and it's hard because, like, if you just go to Google and look at the map as an entirety, you can see it all in one thing. It's definitely a human fetus inside of a womb. And this is the head. You can see the nose here. This would be like the eyes, the mouth, and then you go down. This is kind of like the heart, the arms and stomach here. This is the feet. This is the umbilical cord, and then the water around it would be, the placenta. And even furthermore, if you look up the embryonic stages of brain development, you see the water here is identical to the embryonic brain. And then you come down here into the capital and you see a fully formed brain, even with, the gray matter, wrinkles, and all this type of stuff. So, and you get the umbilical cord and all this type of stuff. So the map itself is telling us that this is a story of human development. It's a very human story. And then basically you go throughout the game and you know that a new order is trying to take shape, specifically in Mikkela's. So you look up here in Mikkela, it's like another part of the brain is starting to grow. A new, more developed, more well-rounded kind of like person. And then I touched on it a little bit, but for every female human being, there is an inner masculinity that Carl Jung calls the animus. This animus is it's kind of like, for female, it's your driving force, it's your more masculine traits, it's like the initiative, it's the order, it's the logos, and then the feminine side is more like, the divine thought, the femininity qualities, nurturing, all those types of things. Every single person has the counterpart within them, and together they make this, what Carl Jung refers to as the divine soul. So I think that it's no wonder that Radigan and America are one, right? Like, they are one. But knowing that Radigan is the second Elden Lord, you kind of wonder, well, did this happen with Godfrey, the first Elden Lord? And until recently, I stumbled across this document that Carl Jung actually had different stages of the animus development. So as the female subject Marika grows and develops, so does her animus. Stage 1 is a man of pure strength. Stage 2 is a romantic man, a war hero. Stage 3 is a learned man, and Stage 4 is a spiritual guide. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to realize that Stage 1 definitely reflects the earlier parts of Marika, and also the first Elden Lord, Godfrey. He just talks about strength. That's all he talks about. He's very like a hulkish character. Radigan, the second stage, gets married, is a war hero. He leads he leads the wars in Liurnia and all this type of stuff. Eventually gets called up to be the second Elden Lord, aka the second stage of the Animus. We know that we're the third stage. This is a pretty cool approach. Yeah, I appreciate it. Honestly, I think it tells the story that we've been looking for, by really just applying this one kind of like blueprint over the story. I think it connects. Yo, what's up, man? Glad you made it. I'm just kind of catching people up on what I was talking about yesterday as far as the animus development and things like that, before I go into the outer gods. That way people get an understanding of exactly kind of the framework in which I build my theories on and why I think the way I think. So different stages of the animus, and then if you also take a peek, like the first church, first stage of the animus, Godfrey. Like he defeats the mountains, or he defeats the giants in the mountaintops. That's like his thing. Second stage is in the red area, red for Radagon, all about love. Animus, just in the context of, well, no, not really. I don't know if did you see my video yesterday by chance? Because if not, then I'll just go through it, because I think it's pretty profound. But we know that the second Church of America, no, not really. Okay, so a couple days ago, I was doing research, just kind of scrolling through my phone, and I knew that there was different stages of animus development, but I didn't know what that meant. And I was kind of, before I talked about it, I kind of wanted to find that piece of evidence that really tied things together. Yesterday, or a couple days ago, I found that piece of evidence. So in an article, and I'll just drop it in the chat, actually, it'd probably be really helpful. So this article is written by a trained Jungian analyst and psychotherapist out of Australia. So it's not just like a Google search. So I just dropped it in the chat there. But basically, it talks about the different stages of the animus development. So just as we grow, right, and we develop in our own personal lives, so does the counterparts of our psyche, if that makes sense. So it's not like we grow individual or separate from the rest of us. It all grows, even the shadow parts of ourselves that we choose not to accept. When we grow, they grow. As above, so below. There's nothing in us that we just leave behind in that kind of sense. Exactly. So as Marika, the individual, grows and develops, so does her counterpart, the masculine counterpart of her soul, aka the animus. Yeah, let me get through this super quick, and then I'll touch upon that. So, stage 1, as you guys can see in that article, man of strength. Stage 2, a romantic man and also a war hero. Stage 3 is somebody who's just learned, and then stage 4 is the spiritual guide. The stage 4 is the final version of the animus, which means that Marika has reached her basically final stage of spiritual awakening, of development, and so has the animus. So they're a completely well-balanced partnership. And remember, this is all internal. So the nice thing is that Miyazaki has built us a world that we can actually interact with these characters. Stage 1, yep, you're absolutely right. It's in the early parts of Marika's childhood. It's, as you can see here that I talked about before, this is the embryonic brain scan, if you want to search it. And then we know that Godfrey's basically sole purpose is he defeated Marika's foes, and specifically the pinnacle of that was the giants. So first Church of Marika, first stage of the animus, Godfrey. It's a pretty 1-to-1 ratio for me for that. Second stage, and I'll just go there. Second stage, we know to be Radagon, a man of romance, a war hero. He led the army in the Liarnian Wars, and He also married. He also married Renala. So he has the capacity to of those qualities. That's kind of like who he is. He's also, if you look in that document I put up, he's kind of a Mr. Fix-It. Like he's a do-all Mr. Fix-It is what it says in there. So, but he has no life of his own, which fits Radagon to a T. Like he doesn't really know who he is. He tries to be whole by basically mimicking other people. When he's with Renala, he learns magic. When he's with America, he learns incantations. He's on this quest to be whole, but he's not like an individual person. He has no initiative. Like he doesn't do. He doesn't have a life of his own. He kind of just mimics. He's a chameleon of those around him, if that makes sense. Another interesting fact about these guys here, if you're looking up like embryonic development or early, fetus development, they mimic that a lot. And they seem to be like very immature and just scared. And I think that is like a really, and I think fear could maybe be, the worm faces. Yeah. Like if you look up the early stages of fetus development, it looks one of the earlier stages looks like them, and the way that they kind of like go about themselves and handle what they're handling is very it kind of just reminds me of how a child would do something, like very scared and unsure of themselves, but don't die, don't do it. So we get to the second church of America, and we know that it has to relate to Radagon. And we know if Radagon is the second stage, romance, right, has to be a key part of his qualities. And in this church is all of these blood roses. Okay, so how does that relate to America herself growing? Well, we know that this part of her life was really early childhood because we have a clue of a early embryonic brain scan, basically, in the water feature here. So this we have to assume, because America's brain is more developed here, as it shows here with this water feature, that she has to be more developed in this area in this second stage, for the second stage to take shape. Well, this area is also where you fight the blood guy, like the scion of blood or whatever that is, and all these blood roses. And to me, we know Miyazaki's kind of obsessiveness with motherhood and parenting and development and menstrual blood and all this type of stuff. I think, so my character's at the end, but if you go in your game and you pop up into here, it's like one of those, mini Moog guys that has the blood. He pops out of a pool of blood. It's like right here. No, it's not Eleonora. It's not like a named character. Let's see. I'll just go to. Not there. Here. I kind of forget what their character name is, but I guess maybe she does. You wanna yeah, there you go, Sanguine Nobles, exactly. Yep, that's it. Thanks, I didn't want to have to go through that. Eleanor might also invade there, and I don't know if that has any sort of implications lore-wise. I'm sure that it does, but for our purposes, it definitely, the fact that I would make the argument that America is going through adolescence and puberty during this time. Right, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many different layers to this that it's hard to know if it's significant to the big plot or if it's a minor character plot. And I think that's where a lot of people, including myself, get kind of connection between the Lord of Reeds and Lord of Blood. Oh, okay. I think that's where a lot of people, including myself, get. We're looking for like this one magic bullet to make sense of absolutely everything, and there's just no way. I mean, even in a movie or any other video game, like there's side quests and there's things that just don't relate at all to the main plot. But anyway, so to me, it's clear that the second stage, the second church, it's a kind of a blood theme, but it's also roses, so it's romantic. All this different stuff points to, okay, this is definitely the second stage of the Animus. America's further along in her development, both physically and mentally, and it's reflected. Her counterpart to that is Radagon. All right. Then there's us, the third. We know we eventually become Elden Lord and all this type of stuff. And then you look at the description of the third stage of the Animus, and it is like this learned character, a professor, a scholar, and that's literally all that we do. We are thrown into this game with basically no information, right? Like we just pop out, and we have no idea what the hell's going on. Our entire purpose is to wander the lands between, gathering information to make a better decision, a more well-informed decision about how we should move, how we should shift the current order to make the world a better place. The thing, we also, in order for these qualities to make it to the next stage, we also have to have the stages from the previous quality. I don't know. I'm not sure if Radahn would be related to the third stage. I think if anything, Radahn would be related more to. I have a theory on Radahn that we can touch on. True, yeah. And I think that maybe he is kind of like the embodiment of like Radahn's will, or Radagon's will, if that makes sense. Radagon is desperate to keep his current order where it's at, and I don't think that he's doing it in a malicious way or like he wants more time in the spotlight. I think it's what he does as the second stage. We know as the second stage that they try to fix everything. So Marika breaks the Elden Ring, and immediately Radagon tries to fix it. Radahn is trying to keep, this system in place, and he's just trying to keep everything perfectly. He doesn't want to let go of his horse. He's trying to fix everything so that way the current status quo can remain. And I don't think he's doing it in a malicious way, but I think that he's doing it because it's who he is. It's his stage of development doesn't get him past, change could be good, a more well-rounded thought based off of knowledge and experience. And that's where we come into play. So we end up being the third stage. I think that's pretty cut and dry again, but we know there to be four stage. So yeah, exactly. So Radahn stopping the stars in a way is Radagon to hold on to his youth or something. Well, I don't think it's a way for Radagon to hold on to his youth. So I think everything that is happening inside the Erd Tree is being reflected to the outside world, if that makes sense. So, like, we wouldn't know what is happening inside of somebody's brain and their thought process unless it comes to life on screen via a character and their character arc. And it's tough too, because I think that Radon, because he has a great rune, he's definitely connected to Marika, right? But because Marika shatters the great rune after she unites with Radagon, it's their collective psyche. So there's aspects of Radagon in the great runes, just like there's aspects of Marika in the great runes. So when she shatters it, it's not just her own feminine qualities. It also has the masculine imprints of the animus, of the logos. So one of those would be like a resistance to change, or trying to fix something, fix a problem, which is a very powerful force in human psychology. I think you can look out in the real world and see that resistance to change is probably one of the most profound, powerful forces in the human thought process, which is why I believe Radon is such a powerful force. He mimics that strong emotional state and his size and his power, which is why he is often touted as being the most powerful demigod, until he gets basically infected by Scarlet Rot. So, anyways, so then we know there to be the fourth stage of the Animus, and that is a spiritual guide, like the balancing partner, a Gandhi type of character, a very peaceful healer kind of character. And we know that the DLC is going to be about Mikola and about kind of the shadow world or the dream world or unconscious world. And I think that it's obvious to me, at least, and I'm definitely biased, so I'm not going to act like there's no... Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of why I'm presenting these, because I want to provide the kind of references that I'm using, so that way you guys can read it for yourselves and be like, make your own conclusions. But when I was reading it, I was like, it lines up perfectly with the different Elden Lords. And I'm gonna drop one other thing in the chat while I'm doing this. Let's see, where is that? Here we go. We know Mikola to be like this very beloved character who is able to... He basically is able to convince people to do things through his logic and the fact that people love him. He's able to do something with dreams, although it's very like... let me see here. Where is it? Here we go. St. Trina's Torch. Trying to find something that is... I have... let me see, where is... Do I have... Maybe I don't. Mikola's St. Trina's sword? Do I not have that? Huh. Let me see here. Let's go. Is it here? We know Mikola to be like the spiritual kind of person who is able to, it seems, hop in and out of the dream world in order to give Godwin a proper death. What's that about? We also know Mikola had some pursuit of the eclipse. Yeah, gosh, man, there's just so much in this game. Let me see, is it here? Anyways, that's the finding of the different stages of the Animus and how it fits so beautifully into the world that we're seeing, as well as like it's already part of this human psychology framework that we're building off of. Like I'm not grasping at straws looking for something else. It's built into what I was already looking at that already made sense to the world. Like it just has me very convinced that we are on the right path. So then you look at, okay, so what causes a person to go about this journey, right? To start this journey of a new order, a new way of thinking, basically spiritual enlightenment or ego death, as it's referred to in psychology. It's something triggers that for that to happen, and it's usually a very traumatic event. I had a really good discussion with another YouTuber. It's actually not a desire. Well, it is, right? But it's prompted by a very traumatic event, and it's usually prompted by an event such as a death. And if you look at America in the opening cutscene, or when she's in the Erd trees, she's wearing all black, which would, if you're trying to portray something in a piece of art of mourning or something like that, they would probably be wearing black. It's not Malekith, but if you remember, so I believe Fair Missoula to be America's childhood, and I think that the god that Placidusax is waiting for would be like her father or her mother, just like Marika is the god in her own world, right? But she has children here. If Marika is a child here, this would not be part of the Lands Between ever. This is separate. This would be her mother or father's inner world that Marika has a very small piece of. So this is like a memory to Marika, Fair Missoula. And it's Fair Missoula is strange because it looks ancient, and then we get like human figures here, and then we get this statue here, and this statue, it could be of Marika, right? It definitely could be. Not saying that it is or it isn't, but one thing it definitely is, as reflected by the Elden Ring above it, is this is the beginning of the division between order and chaos, between man and beast, between intelligence and like impulses, as reflected by the child praying very neatly, your hair's braided, and then you have 3 beasts around her. We know 3 to represent chaos, and then you look up here and it's like you can just start, the order is just starting to peek out from the chaos, from the webs below. I don't think it has any sort of importance if this is an actual character. I think it's just letting you know, as the person playing the game that this is the point in time that either America herself chose order over chaos because of some event, or it's humanity itself choosing the path of order over the path of chaos. So we also know there to be figures of a family inside Fair Missoula. But the crucible becoming the Erd tree, kind of. I mean, yeah, kind of, exactly. So that's almost exactly right. So again, the Erd tree is like this. It's just another physical representation of the inner world of America, right? Like she left behind the crucible, the more chaotic primordial soup of everything is equal and life is life and there's not really a good or bad. And she chose to instead follow the path of order. And out of the crucible started to grow the Erd tree, a much more orderly type of physical structure. Yeah, it's exactly right. So all these different things are just different ways to represent this, what is happening inside of America's thought process. I'm looking for just a figure of that family. Oh, here we go, right here. So let's take a peek. So let's just say that this is America's family, and that this little child with the orb is America, and that the orb represents basically like her consciousness, her intelligence, her ego, all those different types of things. And this would represent her mother and father. It could be, and I actually think that it very much is, that the God of this world is one of those two people, just like the God of our current world is America. And my guess is that something like a death occurred to one of these two people. My guess is it would be the father, since the father is up top, and what's left below is the mother and child. I know that there's also a statue of them all together, but this is later on in Fair Missoula, so it could be that the father dies, right? And it shatters America to the point where her ego, right, because of this, her order, she chooses order, and when she gets to power, the first thing that she does is take out the most traumatic experience of her life, which is death. You know, having the death of a father, especially if you are young, is probably about the most traumatic thing that you could get, that could happen to you. So her choosing to pluck out the rune of death, so that way that pain never comes to her or anybody else, she thinks, I don't know. I guess I don't know. Again, I don't think that there is a person that we know in game to be America's father. Like I don't think it's ever meant to be known, because I don't think it matters. It could be, but I don't. In my point of view, I don't think it matters who this person is, and I don't think that they have any sort of in-game. Yeah, I know who that. I know who that is. He like guides yep, he kind of guides like the dead to the Erd tree. I don't think that that's the same person. And I think that is who Placidusax is waiting for. And I think that the reason that this is crumbling so much is because it's a fading memory of America's. You know, if she's been alive for millennia, this memory of maybe the last memory of her father or of her childhood home would start to crumble. Just like if you try and think about your very first childhood home or your very first childhood friend or your first birthday party or whatever that is, like there's bits and pieces of it, but there's not really a firm hold of what that place is. So, and America locks Malekith here with the Rune of Death because this is where she experienced that trauma. So America, her father or her mother, probably her father, and I think that her father physically looked like Godfrey. In the first stage of the Animus, usually that physical appearance represents a father. So my guess is if we were going to look for a real world photo of what her father looked like, it would probably be Godfrey, is my guess. So she is kind of this broken figure who is traumatized by the death of her father, and because she's so broken, she is able to be influenced by an outer god. Although an outer god, the greater will, is never specifically mentioned as an outer god, because I don't think it's an outer god. I think it's the god that is controlling America's life. I think when a person is kind of broken like that, it makes them susceptible to these other outside influences. So, coming full circle, that is what I believe the outer gods to be, is like these outside influences that can take a hold of a person's thoughts and make it very one-dimensional. Like you look at America and you look around at her childhood home and you see chaos, and she relates chaos with the death of her father, so she goes in the opposite direction and she leaves chaos behind for order. And that leaves her susceptible and very one-track minded for a thought or an emotion to take complete hold of her life and make it its singular purpose. And that's what I think outer gods are.
Let me catch up here. Okay. So moving a little bit further forward, is Marika using the Rune of Death for the Night of the Black Knives, related to her bringing up or pondering the memory of her traumatic death?
So if you look at the second thing that I dropped in the chat, it's an article on ego death, or like spiritual awakening. So, and what's really mind-blowing is that has 7 different stages of ego death. And ego death is like, so ego death is not something that you can't actually kill your ego, right? Like it'll live forever. It's just, are you able to reassimilate your ego in a more healthy way? So in a psychological sense, the ego is the beginning of a world of fractures, or a world of this or that. It's a world of life and death. It's a world of good and bad. It's a world of heat and cold. It's a world, like it makes a fissure down the middle of what you deem as good because your ego tells you that these are good things and they'll make my life, they'll make people around me like me more, and everything else is bad. So that's kind of like the purpose of the ego. And when an ego gets out of control, it can think itself a god. Like, this would be like narcissism. If you are able to judge something so harshly as to that is good and that is bad, that's your own ego telling you those things. And it's your own ego trying to kind of self-perpetuate this lie that you're telling yourself, right? And it might serve you well for a while, but eventually the world around you will crumble because you're being so judgmental and divisive on things that you'll be left alone and only your ego to love you, basically. So ego death is like this spiritual process and developmental process that people go through when their lives are kind of in shambles. So when you look around and you're like, okay, the choices that I made and the things that I thought were wrong, good and bad, did not serve me well in the end, and I need to make a big life change. And that starts the process of ego death. So my guess is that America saw her world around her crumbling because she plucked out the rune of death, and although for a while it was great, we know now that it's not really such a great idea, and things are starting to kind of go sideways. So she looks around her, and as she says this in game, she's even going to look into the Golden Order and try and figure out what the fuck's going on. We can't just have blind faith anymore. That's stage one. Stage one is like this inward look of like, okay, what's going on here? Stage two is called the dark night of the soul. Like, stage two being referred to as the dark night of the soul, and we have an in-game huge event that happens called the Night of the Black Knives. And what happens there is that Godwyn the Golden gets killed. The Golden Child gets killed. Like, I've said from the beginning that I thought Godwyn represented America's ego because it's like all of her best qualities. It's her golden hair, and you know he's powerful, and he has influence with others, and all these types of things. Like, it's her best version of what she thinks that she is. But when she goes through this process, and in stage two of this ego death process, you kind of let go of that part of yourself. So Night of the Black Knives being synonymous with the dark night of the soul based off of the events that happen is like, duh. She tells us that she's going to look into the Golden Order. The next thing you know, Godwyn the Golden gets killed by the Black Knife assassins who come from the same stock as America. And like, the game is telling us that America is doing this, and that Godwyn is not really her child, it's her ego. So that's what that second thing and then it goes through basically the process, the rest of the process of healing and finding better ways, and eventually you end up with Nicola. You end up with the Halig tree. You end up with this new thought process, a new beginning for yourself, where you're not being so divisive and judgmental and all these negative things that your ego does. You're harmonious. You have reached oneness. Like, it's what like Buddhists often strive for. All this different type of stuff. So stage 3, the spiritual seeker, is like the shattering war with different potential parts of America's personality in the form of the Great Rune. Bingo, dude. Yes, exactly. Yep. The shattering war. So when America shatters the Elden Ring, when Marika shatters the Elden Ring, if you look at the opening cutscenes, she's not shattering a physical thing. She has, it's like a chisel that she's hammering down into the Erd Tree. So if we know the Erd Tree to be a physical representation of basically everything that she believes, like this concept of order and pure life, she's shattering that. And in turn, she's shattering her own inner world, her own psyche. And these various parts of her psyche, these different traits that make up her personality, are scattered. And they get picked up or whatever, or they're personified by the different demigods. So each demigod has like a very strong personality type, which reflects the great rune that they are personifying, which is on its own a very toxic, bad thing because it's unbalanced and it's you know, a very one way of thinking. But together, when they are working as one and they're harmonious, and even if it's a negative trait, you need to have good and bad, right? Like that's kind of the whole point of the story, is you can't just leave out the bad things because it's going to bite you in the ass. Her personality traits, the aspects that make up Marika who she is, are reflected in the Great Runes. Exactly, man. Exactly. Okay. So I hope I hope something resonated with you, at least for you to be on board enough to hear me jabber more about why I think the outer gods are like negative, powerful emotional states, or perhaps even some form of mental illness that can take a hold of somebody and completely derail their lives and make it like their sole focus in life. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So, outer gods. So, to me, let's just go to, like, if we look at, the god of rot, let's say, to me, when I think of something that can feel like it's rotting you from the inside out, and start to affect the different aspects of your life and slowly start to kind of work its way into, like we see it here, right? And we know it's working its way west and all this type of stuff, and how powerful of a force it is. To me, that represents something akin to depression. And we know that this is embodied by Melania, in that it's incredibly powerful, but it's rotting her from the inside out. And that we know that Mikola is trying to save her and help her basically throughout to get rid of this outer god. So my reasoning for believing that outer gods are akin to a mental illness is because of, I probably won't have it. Let's see if I have. No, of course I don't. Is akin to Mikla's unalloyed golden needle, having the ability to rid somebody of the influence of an outer god by sticking a golden needle into your eyeball, is almost copy and paste of a lobotomy. A lobotomy is a surgical procedure way back in the day where if you had a mental illness, they believed that that was some sort of demon in your head or some sort of misfiring in your brain that needed to be fixed. And the way they fixed this is they took a gold needle and stuck it through your occipital lobe into your brain to try to get rid of your pathology or of your mental illness. And the reason that they tried other instruments other than gold, but it didn't work because gold is the best material on earth because it doesn't interact with your biology. So other things were causing infections and other issues. Once they turned to pure gold as the instrument to do this, it worked. I mean, quote unquote, worked. Because it no longer had those other negative side effects. So, to me, that's like exactly, yeah. So gold doesn't have the same properties as other materials, and I mean, obviously now in today's surgical world, I mean, it's a very different world than it was back when they were actually doing lobotomies. But that was like the number one. If Jesus didn't help, the next stage was, okay, you're getting a lobotomy. And it was done by a surgeon wearing all white, and it was a golden, basically needle, shoved into your eyeball, played around in your brain, and sometimes it worked. Sometimes the patient no longer had schizophrenia or anxiety or depression or whatever that is. And that is why I believe that based off of everything else, that the outer gods represent a mental illness, a mental pathology. So rot, to me, is depression. And as somebody who has experienced depression and has seen it, I know the effects that it has on people and what it can do to your life. Yeah, so the eyeball thing, I think it was actually ended up being cut, and I think that was done deliberately because it was too on the nose. I think that the connection between a lobotomy, because sticking in your eyeball is like this, you don't really forget something like that. I think it got changed and that text got taken out because we know Miyazaki, if the story is too black and white and too easy to follow, he'll take something out to make it harder, or he'll put in a misdirection to make it harder. But we know through cut content that was the original purpose of it. I think it literally said, stick it in your eyeball at the end of time, and you will no longer have the frenzied flame. I think that's the only reason that it's now not 100%. I just think it's a way for Miyazaki to maintain some sort of illusion of mystery, but if you, thank God somebody's able to find cut content and stuff like that, because or else we'd be really screwed. But that's why I think it's kind of some funny business happening there. And we also know that, let's see if I can find the sword guy. It might not have it. Do I? No. What is this? Though born into a cursed rot, when the young girl encountered her mentor in his flowing blade, she gained wings of unparalleled strength. Yep, blind swordsman. Yeah. So we know that she has a mentor that has defeated this outer god before. And to me, that's like, if you've ever experienced some sort of anxiety or depression, especially at a sustained kind of chronic level, and you are able to find somebody who beats that, yeah, it sounds like a therapist. Yeah. It's either a therapist or it's somebody who had the tools to better themselves and fight through the depression and come out the other end. And I think that is probably why it was her mentor. I think Mikola more represents like the therapist, doctor, healer type of person, because he's doing more like he's trying to physically cure her, and being a mentor is more of like somebody that's your peer that has gone through the same thing. But yeah. So that to me represents the outer god of rot. And please let me know if what you guys think of, what's your interpretation of the god of rot, and what you think it is. Somebody at the very beginning said, Eleni said, to me the outer gods represent forces of nature that exist outside our understanding of the world. They seem more metaphysical than America and exist outside the Elden Ring. Yeah, I think that once you kind of understand my theory and why I think the way I think we're saying the same things. Basically, it's a force caused by some sort of mental illness that is outside of specifically, like America's already kind of consumed by it. Like you could almost say America has the mental illness of OCD, where like its control and order and things have to be just so. And you could talk to somebody with severe OCD, like they might be clean and organized and blah blah blah, but they're fighting an internal battle, and they're tormented just as much as any other mental illness. Is there any significance to the lake of Rot being under Liurnium? Yeah, I'm not 100% sure, other than that we know that there is this chick here who has experienced what I would consider severe depression by way of heartache, basically. She is a husk. This is a great representation of what depression looks like. So if that is the depression on the outside and what the world sees, depression on the inside would look like this. And I think that's probably, I've thought about that before, and I think that's probably why, yeah, I know it's the statue behind her too, right? Like, he is the cause of it. I think that's the only reason I come up with why the lake would be here. Because the character that we see in game who experiences this in real time is Renala. It's pretty powerful stuff, like, and things start to make sense very quickly. How Radagon caused the Misbegotten? I would love to. Hit me with it. Smith Bob? If you're asking me to start, I don't. I haven't really thought about that, but I'm very interested in it. Actually, let's go to a place where we can see them. Radagon in general seems to be like, kind of like Malekith in terms of proper lore. Radagon in general seems kind of like Malekith in terms of proper lore. Okay. I might need help with that one. So, let's see, what do we have as far as misbegotten? Misbegotten. Elden Ring. Okay, the misbegotten are held to be punishment for making contact with the crucible, and from birth they are treated as slaves or worth. Misbegotten are held to be a punishment for making contact with the crucible. The theory is Radagon caused the misbegotten by trying to separate himself from Marika. Seemingly, he tried a lot. Using the rune of unborn or whatever it is, making contact. Misbegotten are apparently called children of Radagon. What sort of... So I've heard of this before now that you've said the Japanese internal file thing. I've heard of this before, but besides the actual wording itself from the Japanese files, what is there anything else that leads people to believe that Radagon somehow caused the misbegotten? And why him separating himself would do that? Because to me, Radagon is desperately trying to... Golden Order Greatsword. Okay, Greatsword made of light, modeled after the Elden Ring itself, forged by King Consort Radagon to proudly symbolize the tenets of the Golden Order. Telltale signs betray that this was once the greatsword bequeathed to him by his first wife, Renala. Wait, am I... Golden Order Greatsword. I don't see anything on here that would make it seem like, Oh, it's held by a misbegotten in game. Oh, gotcha. So, to me, I think if Radagon wanted to leave, he would have had... To me, it looks like Radagon is holding Marika hostage, trying desperately to fix the Elden Ring. Like, the thorns are impenetrable, and it's clearly Radagon's seal on it. The Elden Beast, in my opinion, represents Radagon's soul. We know in game, if you're going to actually kill something, you have to kill the physical body and also their soul. which is why I think you fight both in this. It's one boss, like it's one continuous fight, because you're fighting his physical side and also his soul or his spirit. I don't think it has anything to do with America at all, which I got wrong in my first Elden lore video, or Elden Ring lore video. I think Radagon, both physically and spiritually, are holding America hostage, because we know that the rune arc that she's on is an attack used by the Elden Beast, and we also know that we don't know, but I think a lot of people have made the assumption that the red hilt or the red sword thing that's in America represents Radagon, and I think that he is there indefinitely trying to fix the Elden Ring until somebody else comes and saves America. I don't have an answer for why a Misbegotten would be holding that, and why it would be called Radagon's Children. Agent of the Greater Will, or whatever. To keep. Yeah, but you have to remember, America created this world. Everything that we see around is a fault of her own. It's she kind of made her own bed and now she's lying in it, kind of thing. I don't think that the outer gods actually meddle in things. Like I think it's the character's mindset that is the real powerful force, and the decisions that they make because of that mindset. So Marika put Malekith there. Marika is Radagon. Marika chose the greater will because she no longer wants death in her life because of what I am saying is some sort of family death. Like all these things are not, it's not the greater will doing it, it's Marika herself that did it in the past, and now it's, the piper has come to get its money. So I don't think, just like in the Christian worldview, right? Like God himself doesn't do anything. He allows free will, and you just have to live with the choices that you make and hope that you can correct those decisions down the road. It's not like God is causing certain things. It's our choices as a human being that is causing these things. And God just, if you're a Christian, if that's what you believe. Oh yeah, people do things in God's name all the time. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a whole separate issue. I think I hear what you're saying as far as like, it might not be an exact, like, the greater will is doing this. I'm doing it because of the greater will, I think is maybe what I'm hearing you say. But that's still a human decision, right? Like in real life, there's no amount of, if you believe in a benevolent creator, doing something like murder in God's will is your own decision. You're just using God as a foothold to justify your decision, basically. Yeah, still a human decision. Because if the greater will wanted, the greater will, if it was that powerful, right, and that omnipotent, it wouldn't bother with other characters. Like, it would just lock Marika away and never let her leave. It wouldn't have people coming and going. It sure as hell wouldn't have us. Like, if there was a thing that powerful in Elden Ring, no amount of tarnished or, vigor that we have would do a damn thing about a god making a firm decision on something. it's really hard to say why the misbegotten are called Radigan's children. It could be something as simple as like the person who was in charge of that like thought they looked similar to Radigan, and it was an easy way. Like, I'm not saying that that's what it is, but I think it's really hard based off of the information that we have to jump to any sort of conclusion that Radigan created the misbegottens in the game. There just doesn't seem to be anything that actually like points us in that direction. Radigan gooned? What does that mean? You got gooned. So let's look at another outer god. Where am I trying to go here? Somewhere. I think the fingers are. I don't want to say that they're like. Yeah, frenzied flame. Yeah. I don't want to say that the fingers are an easy. I don't think that the fingers are going to get talked about more in DLC, at least in a way that's going to help us solve anything. I think if there's confusion on it now, my guess is that there's going to be more confusion on it by the end of the DLC. I think the fingers are literally just representations of 2 means order, 3 means chaos. And again, because it's a work of fiction, you have to have some sort of physical thing that portrays that, in a sense. Like, if the greater will is like the mindset that America is in, the next step down in that hierarchy would have to be how she enacts this order onto the world, and that would have to be some sort of physical person, like like in Game of Thrones, there's the king, and then there's Sean Bean. I forget what his. Talk about a fucking bummer, man. But that would be what this would represent. And the abandonment of the greater will, and the reason that these will never come back online, is because America is no longer in that mindset of, one-track mind of the greater will, order, life, black and white. She has evolved past that, and that is why there's been this leave of absence from the greater will that will never come back, and that these fingers here will never change. Let me see here. How do I get tabs? No. Forsaken depths? Is that it? And again, because this is a work of fiction, it's really like the fingers can't just appear, right? They can't just be here because that's really odd. That's not what a good storyteller does. I wonder if I can still do this. The fingers in the round table hold are there. Does that mean they're dead because the round table hold doesn't actually exist? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'll touch on that in just in a minute here. Two sets of fingers, aren't they? Two sets of fingers. I mean, doesn't every Empyrean have their own set of fingers? Yeah. So if you go onto every, let me see here. Can I get to the top of that one? Gate. Yeah. So at the top of every tower, right, with the great runes are the two fingers. But we know, based off of the theory that we're building here, the great runes to be personality traits or aspects of America themselves. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. That would be, like, that had to have happened back in, like, Fair Missoula days, where it was a whole hand. And have you guys ever noticed that when you go into the boss fight, you should check this out. When you go into the boss fight of Rykard, it looks like a fist, like a full hand with all of its fingers. That's not on accident. Like, there's a reason that they did that. It's really interesting. You should check it out and let me know what you think. But I would do it now, but I'm way past that in this character. We know the Great Runes to be aspects of America, so it makes sense that even the Empyreans, her children, it makes sense that it's still, especially given the time frame for which the shattering happened. The Greater Will didn't leave until post-shattering, during the Shattering War. So the Empyreans, by that point, were already associated with order, if you will. And order doesn't necessarily mean that it is America's order. It just means that you have a vision for the world based off of your ego that you deem as right and wrong. There's no middle ground. There's this and that. And yeah, exactly. Order means any order. It's not it's not a, and the reason that there's one set of three fingers and that one set of three fingers wants to make the world one again is because it's chaos. There's no order in chaos. It's going backwards into chaos. And I don't think that order is wrong. Like, I don't think that but it has to be balanced order, basically. It can't just be black and white. Like, there has to be some sort of balance to it. It can't be eternal life and no death. Like, that's not good. It would be really cool to see the fingers, and I also think we get a bit of that through the Beastmen. We know through different items that they have that five fingers is really important to them. Before that, they were just pure chaos, right? Like, running completely on instinct. They had no rhyme or reason. They had no consciousness. They had no ego. And as they got further and further developed and they gained more and more knowledge, so too did they gain the concept of order. So my guess is they had three fingers before. That's just a total speculation. Through knowledge, through consciousness, they gained the concept of order. It's best to have a full hand where order and chaos are constantly moving back and forth, and life is life and death is death, and there's a lot of gray area. But unfortunately, America chose pure order, and not in a good way, and that led to where we were at. Um, yeah, when is that? Yeah, Rykard is super interesting. Yep, definitely closed fist. Order means any order, like the different endings that the game has. Yeah. So she chose it in OCD kind of way. Yeah, yeah, exactly. She chose it because she thought that it would rid her life of any more pain, basically. She the only reason I think that the game would bother putting a family depiction, a statue in Fair Missoula, and everything that we know is because something happened with that family, and something negative. And the reason that America picks a death out and has the golden order is because she no longer wants that pain in her life. But going about life that way is not realistic, and eventually it's going to come to bite you in the ass. So I think and also remember, we're just the third stage of the animus. So any ending that we pick is not going to be the right ending. It's just we're not the final stage. That's Miquela's duty, and that's why he's kind of the last one remaining out there, and the DLC is all about him, and he's trapped in a dream somewhere because Moog took him, and his hand antenna went limp, and he can't get back. That's my 5-second theory on Miquela. But I don't think any order that we pick is right or is the lasting order. I think that we're going to reset. There'll be an age of abundance, just like with the golden order. We're just going to reset it and reset it and reset it until Miquela is able to come and do his thing. Why does Moog want him? Why does that matter? Why does what matter? I think Moog wants him because Moog is really, really smart. And I think that he already knows. Why does Moog adopting Miquela matter? Well, I think that's why Miquela is missing from the original game. I think that's the only point of, outside of Moog trying to raise a dynasty. I think that it was the catalyst that they used to not have Miquela in the game because they were saving him from the DLC. I think that's why. And I think and I could 100% be wrong, but I think that Miquela is in the dream world even when Moog takes him. And when Miquela's hand falls in that cutscene with Moog, yeah, I think that Moog knows how powerful Miquela is. Like, if you're asking from a lore perspective, from Moog's perspective, I think Moog is really, really smart and understands how powerful Miquela is and understands that he needs him to build the almighty dynasty. Because you hear Gideon say, like, America is pissed. I forget exactly how it goes, but it's like, we tell him that Moog has Miquela, and Gideon says back to us, like, oh, that must be why America is so upset, or something like that. Like, remember, Moog is a part of America. So if America knows and is on this journey, that means that her shadow side is on this journey too. Infant form. Yeah. Gideon says that Moog absconded with his infant form. Moog and Moore got to America. Okay, based off of my point of view, if Godwin represents America's ego, it would fit. And remember, Godwin is the golden child. He's placed in the capital at the highest peak, underneath the Erd tree's golden rays. I don't know. I mean, who knows? Who knows how long he has had Mikola, right? Like, if things in cocoons grow and change, so it's not a super big stretch to think that during this time his body has grown. That's the only thing I can think of. Or it's possible that, well, actually what would make a lot more sense is that Moog realizes that he can't use Mikola's body, and instead he put a different entity in that cocoon thing and is trying to reach the like the underworld. So this is you might be onto something here. Where is it? Let me see here. Are you freaking kidding me? Where does Deathroot live in your bar? Huh? I for sure have to have Deathroot. I'm gonna have to jump to another character really quick to show this. Key items. So I didn't have any? What the frick? How is that even possible? Did I miss it? I see that. Huh? Okay, I must not have any. Okay, let me change characters. It's possible that Moog is using, yeah, I guess I must have spent it all. Is using a catalyst of somebody else's body and blood to, who would have it? Lenny? To make contact. Oh, jeez. Damn! Okay, key items. Come on, baby. Are you... I would not spend them, I don't think. I don't really... What the hell? Okay, we'll hold again. A source that gives rise to those who live in death, the beast clergyman found at the bestial sanctum in the distant east collects and devours these roots. Stolen rune of death enabled the first demigod. Later, the rune of death spread across lanes between through the underground roots, sprouting in the form of death root. So I think, so if we know that if we know that there has, like, I have to have something. If we know that Godwin represents the ego and is in this golden light of everything holy and is, you know, and the flip side of that is what we see with Ario, thank God, is what we see with Moog. The flip side to the ego is the shadow. So everything that America deems as unacceptable would be housed in Moog. Everything that America deems as acceptable and cherished and loved would be housed in Godwin. One that lives in the capital, in the golden rays of the Erd Tree, and one that lives literally in the sewers in darkness and is an outcast. That's the dichotomy, the duality of those. And Morgoth is somewhere in the middle. Yeah, the Morgoth might just be more of the same, like also the shadow. It's really difficult. I can make the connection pretty firmly with Moog. Morgoth is still kind of this mystery to me, and yeah, who kind of lives somewhere in the middle, just like it's almost like the three of them represent chaos, if you will, where you have a clear ego, a clear shadow, and then something in the middle. Like that kind of seems to be how their trilogy works. So on the night of the blah, 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 I wanted to look at the picture itself, because the picture looks identical to how Mikula is in that cutscene with the Moog fight, in the cocoon with his arm directly overhead, almost like an antenna. And if we have Mikula doing that, or whoever that thing is in there, and we have Deathroot, which is associated with the spirit world, it could be that Moog is trying to make contact with the spirit world and get Mikula, which would really fit pretty well with what we know about Moog and where Mikula at least seems to be, especially with, like, they didn't for an important item like this, they didn't use this as a repeat asset. Like, they designed this, and specifically the cocoon and the arm in that boss fight, in a very specific way. So I think that they are definitely connected, and it could be that Moog found out a way, maybe through blood, to get connection to the spirit world and get Mikula. And I know there's been a ton of speculation about how we're going to get to the DLC. It could be that. It could be that we touch that hand and we are into the spirit world and away we go. And our new quest to find Mikula and free him and get him out of the spirit world because this connection was lost, could really be it. That to me makes a lot of sense. Okay, let me catch up here. So they just cast off bits of their minds as they have kids. Well, that's a good question, actually. So all of these quote-unquote kids have great runes, and I associate the demigods with different aspects of America. So kind of, I don't think that they actually like Godfrey and her. It could be like literally in lore game or in game lore, they actually did have sex and ended up with these three kids. I think the more symbolic, esoteric view on that is that Godfrey was already a aspect of America, because like him, or like us, he is the animus. He just is the first stage of the animus. So she is basically having sex with herself, just the masculine side of herself. So yeah, like yes and no. And I think when they all split, right, when, like, we don't really know the demigods pre-shattering. We know that once they got their great runes, they were we know that I know, dude, it's hard. It's the complexities of human psychology, overlaid with the complexities of Elden Ring, make this really, really hard to figure out. But I think that we're really close, if I'm being honest. Like, I think we're closer than any other theory I've seen. I haven't seen anybody even mentioned like human psychology in another video, which really surprises me. But hey, what do I know? Yeah, I have to tell it exactly. Like a very complex story that you're trying to tell, and then another very complex story. Are we still missing some outer gods? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we'll get back on track here. So one thing I wanted to talk about before we go back to there. So as my man Galad said, Galad or Glad? He gave us a description, and it went through, it spread across lands between through the underground roots of the great tree sprouting in the form of Deathroot. To me, again, like, I hope this character's there. Come on, baby. Oh, Jesus. If Godwyn the Golden represents the ego, America is going through the process of ego death, it would then make sense that the death root sprouting from Godwyn is spreading its tentacles across the lands between, because this is the process that America is going through. Ego death being represented by Godwyn's death and his decay, and that having the effect that it's having, and Deathroot sprouting up everywhere, fits really well with like the visual theme that we're seeing of that. It's just another added piece of evidence that kind of, at least to me, is like, okay, so we're heading in the right direction. Because I don't think, I have a hard time believing through playing Miyazaki's game and understanding the deep. Oh, I found that interesting about Radagon. Jarhead community post. Jarhead is Radagon is a usurper guy. I think that might have been me. I actually commented on Crunchy and him's lore video because there's another comment about it, and yeah, I'd love to have conversations with other content creators about lore, because I feel like the major ones, the ones that gain a lot of popularity, are like missing the mark by a mile. And I don't mean that to be a criticism, because the work that they're doing is beautiful, and like the content that they're creating is really, really good, but the substance of it like doesn't really animist in the whole game is a metaphor for therapy. Yeah. Okay, so that was not me. But I'd be curious to know who it was. I wonder if it was somebody that came from that other video. But I'm not trying to critique other creators, because there's some that do amazing work. But I think the ones that have a ton of popularity, unfortunately, just have really nice visuals. Yeah, 100%, just my view. But I feel like we're not quite. There's something missing with the story that they're telling. But that's my view. So let's see if we can talk to.
Go to the door ahead. It will surely open.
Okay. So the god of frenzy flame. I'll just do this cutscene super quick. Okay. So yeah, so let me just go through, kind of answer some of these. I agree. I absolutely love that cutscene. It's really cool. So there's no god of frenzy flame, it's just a frenzy flame. According to like the wiki, it is an outer god. Like there's something that we're missing that says for sure that's an outer god, but I tend to believe that it's an outer god. And I think that it's the three fingers wouldn't be the god of frenzy flame, because just like the two fingers aren't the god, it's actually the greater will. It's just how it is. It's just how it's. Again, it's the visual representation of how it's acting, I guess, almost. And so if we look at, they fall from the sky. I have no idea. I'm not so sure that. I think that's one of those things that's like there's not really an answer for. Well, one is, I think it's just more of a symbolic thing. I think it's again just like with. Oh, I can't even do it here. Interesting. I think just like with Godwin and Moog, like the desired things, the things that are deemed acceptable, live above the surface, kind of like underneath the golden rays of the Erd tree. The things deemed unacceptable are hidden in the dark away. I think it's that. I'm not so sure there's a lore reason like that we're gonna get, like that they fell from the sky or that it was built up or anything like that. I think that it's more of a symbolic thing. I don't think that they're linked to this. Oh, to the Golden Order. Hold on, I'm gonna talk about this outer god super quick. So if we think, so again, outer gods are like this mental illness. If the god of rot represents depression, I think that the god of frenzy flame represents like schizophrenia. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And that's just, I mean, there's varying elements of it, because as you can see, like, there's different I guess there's different levels to it. Yeah, 100%. You're spot on there. So schizophrenia is this disorder, you probably all know what it is, that you believe yourself to be a god. You things are talking to you. It's you're not really capable of interacting with the world. I see shit that ain't there. You talking to me? So, like, if for example we look at where it's kept, it's secluded away. Oh yeah, well, schizophrenia is you hear things that aren't there. Like a lot of homeless people are schizophrenic because they're unable to adapt with their illness and interact with the world in a meaningful way. Like they're kind of isolated and they're kind of rocking back and forth, and they're often talking to themselves, and it's like, I don't want to use this word, but like when you think of somebody's crazy, it's that, like they probably have schizophrenia. And often in like a mental institute, schizophrenic people would be locked away in a room so they don't hurt themselves or don't hurt other people, because they believe that voices are telling them to do bad things. And in those rooms, you know, things like nail marks and there's padding and all this different type of stuff, which I think mimics the room aspect of person's personality, are bound up with their delusions. Yeah, you're secluding yourself. Yeah, but they don't realize that, if that makes sense. They're not isolating themselves on purpose. They think that the world is after them, and that's like why they're not doing it because they're afraid that, like, well, they're afraid. It's a complex issue. I don't really know how to. But I think we all know what I'm trying to say. I just can't really find the words for it. But I think that this room represents like the holding cell that a schizophrenic patient would possibly be in. Exactly. Yep. Yeah, exactly. And they're often holding their head because, like, they're asking for voices to go away and all this type of stuff, which we know based off of the other frenzied things. Like, we can go to that little watchtower with the eye, and they're all holding their head, and they're all kind of talking to themselves, and the whole goal of frenzied flame is to burn it back down to the great one. What is it called? The one great? Is that it? Which, in my opinion, is basically akin to almost like being brain dead, or like you're completely operating in an unconscious system. Like you don't have an ego, you don't have like this frontal lobe to make real cognitive decisions.
The flame of chaos is nestled within me. Could you please rest your hand upon me? Burn me with the flame to make me your maiden.
That makes, like, they're looking for nothingness. Is that what you're saying, Kim? Shut up!
It burns.
Yeah. The void. Yep.
My eyes. They're melting.
Yeah. I have not made that connection with the one great before, but if that's the place where like everything's kind of burned back down to its primordial soup of nothingness, like that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. I have touched them. The words of the three fingers. As your maiden, allow me to divine them. All that there is came from the one great. Then came fractures, and births, and souls. But the greater will made a mistake. Torment, despair, affliction, every sin, every curse, every one born of the mistake. And so, what was borrowed must be returned, melted all away with the yellow chaos flame, until all is one again.
That's
Those who gave me grapes howled without words, saying they wished they were never born. Become their lord, take their torment, despair, their affliction, every sin, every curse, and melt it all away. As the Lord of Chaos, no more fractures, no more birth.
You're asking what mistake? Well, oh, interesting. I better put a weapon on because I'll get my ass killed for sure. Is that a key item? Probably not. Confers Mattis upon those. Adapted the flame. Blah, 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 blah. Where's the seal? Strength, dexterity, intelligence, and faith all together. Makes sense. You're asking what mistake? Yeah, the original fracture. Like I think what they're getting at is humanity is on one path, and one path only. Like, as enlightened as some of us may be, collectively we are still a very young species that is selfish and doesn't necessarily do good. But no arcane. Why no arcane? I'm not sure. So even the very birth of us, it was always leading to one path of class division and prejudice and all of these negative things that come along with us as a race. I think is what it's saying. Having all, but no arcane. Why no arcane? I'm not sure why no arcane. It's a good question. Dangerous to themselves. Yep. Okay, let's check out. Let me see here. Catacombs. I think it's this, right? Do you believe
primeval current is some sort of outer god?
I don't think so. I think that's a whole separate thing. I think that's separate from the main lore of the game. It's like a side quest thing. That honestly I haven't really spent much time thinking about. I think what it means. It's definitely massive. No, you're totally right. I just don't think it. It doesn't seem to tie in with like America, and I could be very, very, very wrong about this, but it doesn't seem to tie in with like the whole America's Radagun.
Bloodstar, big glimpse it, and gain power.
I think it's the primeval current is the singular path of scientific and what am I trying to say? Like, and technologies progression, like, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's nuclear energy. I would have to. Isn't one of these a thing? I did have a thought about this, but it was a long time ago. I'm trying to. Let's just see what it says up here. Open her. Current. Is that what it means? I mean, I honestly, you'd have to help me out here a little bit. Primal current is a forbidden tradition of glintstone sorcery. To those who cleave to its teachings, the act of collecting sorcerers to fashion them into the seeds of stars is but another path of scientific inquiry. Has human guinea pigs for her discoveries. Becoming part of the School of Graven. Yeah. Where is Moog's? Where's his area at? Soaked in the accursed blood from that love for the wretched mire that he was born into, far below the earth. I'm getting there. Hold on. Okay, so we've talked about the rot. We've talked about frenzied flame, and I think it's holding true that these outer gods are some sort of mental illness. So Formless Mother is an outer god known as the Mother of Truth, who craves wounds. The Formless Mother is associated most closely with Moog, Lord of Blood, giving him and his followers access to blood incantations. When Moog sowed before her, deep underground, his accursed blood erupted with fire. Moog's attempts to alleviate Mikola to godhood imply that the Formless Mother possesses the ability to uplift someone to the status of God. Trident of Moog, Lord of Blood, sacred spear that will come to symbolize his dynasty. Bestows power upon accursed blood. Mother of Truth, desires a wound. The thing that stands out to me when I read that description of the Mother of Truth or the Formless Mother is it has to do with self-harm. And self-harm, it's hard to put a specific pathology on that, because I think a lot of mental illnesses I think a lot of them seem to have that kind of effect of self-harm. Like it's not exclusive to a certain, yeah. The thing that stands out to me is that the knowing that it is able to turn blood into fire leads me to believe that it's some sort of serious rage, like anger management type of thing. The saying, "It makes my blood boil," is the only thing that comes to my mind when I'm trying to put these things together. And I don't know if rage is necessarily a so strong, literally nice. It makes your blood boil. Yep, exactly. Like, and the fact that it requires you to hurt yourself. I'm not really like, I feel like there is some sort of mental illness that has those qualities, but I'm not able to discern between to make a definite. So I'd be interested to kind of hear your guys' thoughts on. I feel like the other two are pretty cut and dry. Like I think that they definitely fit what we see and what we hear from dialogue. This one, I'm not sure if there's a mental illness that is rage. Sure, it's some sort of personality disorder, but intermittent explosive disorder, impulse control disorder, sudden episodes of unwarranted rage. People with it essentially explode into a rage despite a lack of apparent provocation or reason. That seems to fit Moog pretty well, especially since his blood flame literally like explodes. I don't know. You guys have to let me know what you think about that one. That one's kind of weak. I think it's there, but sick. Oh God! Don't do it. I think I get what you're saying. I think you're right. I think you're onto something there. What the? Jeez. So they just need... So it needs a wound, but not necessarily self-harm. Yeah. 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 And maybe what it is Moog, we know that he kind of embraces his omen side and basically says, hey, if you're going to outcast me and make me the bad guy, then I'm going to be the bad guy. And starts harming others and has these explosive rage-like moments, which is portrayed by his blood flame. Yeah, he's definitely one heck of the ultimate bad guy. And Moog, being kind of the in-between, is trying to be good and then eventually realizes that no matter what he does, he is never going to be Elden Lord, and that even though that he is given his entire life to the Golden Order and to America and to the House of America, it's not serving him at all. And in the end, he ends up turning and embracing his own dark side and unleashes his own blood flame. Good catch. I think that definitely holds more water than what I was saying, for sure. This is why I love these. I think you have to have these interactions in order to build a theory. Like it's hard to think on your own and attack it from like different angles. And then the last outer god that's specifically named is the unnamed god of the twin bird. This one's... Twin birds are said to be an envoy of an outer god, the mother of the death birds.
Outer god related in some fashion to death. Say the outer god is that the twin bird is a vassal, the twin bird is the mother of death birds, ghost flame sorceries, explicitly related to death birds. Those who live in death. This idea is Elfin steeple. Place known as the Helfin, which may be associated with this outer god. Yeah. This one's hard for me. I feel like the other ones were kind of low-hanging fruit, but the Deathbird one is tough. Lampwood, which guides the dead of the spirit world. I think we're gonna find out a lot about this in the DLC. Yeah, some god that related to death sorcery. It's not necessarily death sorceries. It seems to be related to like the spirit world. It's like the god of the spirit world. And if that's where we're going, then perhaps that god has a hold of Mikola, and we need to kill that god in order to free Mikola. I think this one was probably intentionally left very vague in order to further talk about it. Yeah, kind of like Spirit Ashes, yeah. To further talk about in DLC. I think that's kind of the only thing I can think of. And I'm sure once we see it and we have some sort of contextual clues, we'll get a good idea. With red graces instead of... Sounds fitting for the DLC. Yeah, I totally agree. Yep, I totally agree. I think it's more than likely where Mikola is able to visit. And he's stuck there. And I think we're going to get him. Is my guess. Oh, that's... What is that? Yeah, I think so. I genuinely hope that the thinking about the game in this way allows you all to make connections. Like, I think if you go back through and you start playing the game from the beginning with kind of this mindset, like I'll do maybe a little bit of research and things like pop off the screen as like that is definitely what that is supposed to mean. Like this is what this character is, and like it by no means is it a bow tie on top by like just neatly packed, but I really think that it paints the fullest picture and gives us the best answers in a very clear cut way. I would say I don't know how long I've been talking, but there hasn't been very many times where I've been like grasping at straws for something, unless it's, in my opinion, supposed to be talked out about later, like in DLC or something. So I might leave it there for today, unless you all have something specific you'd like me to talk about. But yeah, I think we have a pretty good understanding of the outer gods. Oh man, I have no idea. Like part of me wishes that there was never a Dark Souls 2 and a Dark Souls 3. I don't know. Like it seemed like the masterpiece was Dark Souls 1, and it was so popular that they were pressured to make more, and
it's never stood up to, I think, the expectations of it. And I think the same would be true with Elden Ring. Like I would rather have them drop this masterpiece, and even if there's unanswered questions, go on to something else, because that's part of like the beauty of it. I think fanfare wise, my own personal, like if they could make one that like answers more questions and like gives me more Elden Ring, like selfishly, yes, I would love that. But I don't think it would ever match the expectations that would be put on it because of just the sheer masterpiece that is Elden Ring. So I don't know. I think Miyazaki he's proved himself enough that I think, just like with Bloodborne, like a Bloodborne 2 would be fucking bananas. Like, as a fan of the game, dude, I would pay $1,000 to play it. But it would probably be lackluster compared to what I'm expecting it to be, and I think that's an unfair thing to put on FromSoft and Miyazaki. So I think if a second one is made, it's not because Miyazaki, it's like his desire to make it. I think he's being pressured to make it. Yeah, thanks, Kim. Yeah, you should go back. I would definitely watch the first Great Works Part 1 that kind of summarizes like why I believe the things I believe and the connections that are made. I will say that looking back on it now, being further down the road and gaining more information, I made mistakes in Part 1 and associated characters with wrong things, I think. But it'll give you an idea and probably a more balanced, well-rounded understanding of exactly what the hell I'm talking about and why I believe what I believe. And then also the inner world playthrough. It's me just from the beginning of the game creating a character and like step by step explaining, hour by hour why I believe what I believe and what certain things mean in my mind. So yeah, I hope you do go back, and I hope you guys are able to join me on the next one. I'm not a very good content creator, so I'm working on like actually scheduling things and making it so we can all interact better. But I hope you guys can join me for the next time that I am on. I'm trying to do something once a day. It might be late at night. It must be, might be during the middle of the day. But I hope you guys are able to join me. So, yeah, I appreciate it too. I think you guys added a lot to the conversation. So, yep. I think that there's a lot more mind-blowing things out there. So. Maybe on this video, if you guys want to just give it a like if you wouldn't mind, and then comment below what you guys would like to talk about next time. And the mystery's still out there, and see if we can figure them out kind of with this Jungian human psychology framework and see where we get. But anyways, guys, I really appreciate you all. Thank you so much for joining me. If you wouldn't mind, give me a subscription, a like, all that kind of stuff. It goes a long ways. But much love. Hope you guys have a good day. Peace.